In this video you will learn about the versatility of the header and footer in our FNC DataGrid control. The header and footer are both optionally available, and from the header, for example, you can automatically handle the visual grouping, but you can do more. You can add your own custom controls to the header and trigger custom actions from this header. And the same applies to the footer. In the FNC DataGrid, the footer can host the automatic built-in paging in the grid, but you can also add your own custom functionality to this grid footer. Have a look at the demo that I prepared for you, where I will show you how you can do that with the FNC DataGrid. And here we have in our IDE a new project with the FNC Data Grid, and the header and footer capabilities are controlled by the settings that we find in the object inspector. For example, under header, when I open this, you can see here the bar property that controls additional controls that are in a bar in the header part of the FNC Data Grid. And there is also the visual grouping property from where you can enable or add the capability to do visual grouping via a bar in the header. And this is done by setting the visible property of the visual grouping sub-property of the header to true. When we want to add custom controls to our header, we can do this via the bar. We can make the bar visible. And here we have a list of controls that we can add. This is a collection, and we can add whatever number of items in this collection, and these will appear in the header in our grid. And the same applies to the footer. When we scroll to the footer property, here you can see that we can make the footer visible or not. And we can also here add controls to a bar that is a part of the footer where you can add these controls. Here in this sample, we have done this in code. So what we have actually done here is add a number of buttons on the form, and also an edit control and a label. These are available on the form, and in code we have added these to the header bar and the footer bar. So you can see here that we add button 1 as the first control in the header bar, and so forth, button 2, button 3. And in our footer we have added the edit control, a button control, and also a label control. You can see here that we have programmatically started grouping in the grid, and we have done this grouping on column 3 and column 4. Let's maybe first have a look at the result of this setup in our FNC Data Grid. Here is our application. You can see grouping that has already happened, and you can see that the visual grouping part in the header is visible, is available. And as we have grouped on column 3 and column 4, you can see these items here in our part, the visual grouping part of our header. And we can, for example, remove grouping. We can add grouping on, for example, let's say on product, like this. We can also have hierarchical grouping that we can control from this header part, and you can see the result reflected immediately in the grid itself. But that, of course, is everything that is related to the visual grouping. You can see here the 3 buttons that were on our form, the 3 buttons from where I can trigger actions like a calculation, and you see the calculation result actually in the group summary here. This is the result of clicking that calculate button, or from here we can also collapse or expand the sections in our grid. And the same applies to the footer, where we have added this edit control and also a button control. And if, for example, we would search for the word west from this footer, you can do it like this, and you can see that it has focused the row in the grid where it found the first occurrence of the word west. Let's have a look at the code behind, and we can do that by directly binding it to the event handlers of the controls that we added to the header bar or the footer bar. Calculations, for example, the simple event handler for clicking this button, you can find it here, and you can see in code that we have added calculations, column calculations, and these column calculations will appear automatically in the group summary bar under each group in the grid. And the same applies to the collapse all button, where we simply invoke collapse all nodes. We have also an expand all nodes button. And then finally, we also have the footer, where we have added an edit control and a search button. If we click the search button, what you can see is that it performs a find operation with the data that is found in the edit control, and it will automatically activate the row where the first occurrence of this text is found. That is actually all you need to do to add whatever custom functionality in the FNC Data Grid in the header or in the footer. Let's have a look at this application again. So here you can see it in action, and here when I press the calculation button, you can see that it has automatically appeared in the group summary row. From here we have also enabled sorting and filtering, for example, and that is what you can simply do by clicking on the column header. And the same applies here to our search bar, and again when I search for west, it goes to the first row west. Finally, this is also working with FireMonkey styles. Here we have an application with FireMonkey styles enabled, where I can simply switch between two styles from this button. And so you can see that also the header and the header controls nicely change together or in sync with the FireMonkey style that is chosen in this application. And with that, you've learned how you can make the header and the footer visible in the FNC Data Grid, how this header can be automatically used without needing to add any code to do visual grouping, where you can simply drag column headers to the group row and remove them again. Also invoke hierarchical grouping from that header part, but also how you can add your custom controls there. In this case, we have added 3 buttons, and the same applies for the footer, where you can add custom controls. And here we have added a edit control, a button, and also a label control, a label that shows actually data of the active row in our FNC Data Grid. So a lot of powerful things that you get out of the box, or that you can add to the FNC Data Grid header and footer. I hope this video was helpful. For more content, make sure to subscribe on this video by clicking the subscribe button below, and you will be notified as soon as we have more content on our FNC Data Grid or the many other components that tmssoftware.com is offering. Thank you.